So what I'm doing is I'm taking these people, they're looking for a 12-month place. They want it to maybe be fully furnished, maybe not. I'm getting them to sign a sublease with me. And then I turn around to the apartment complex, sign a lease for that property because they recently went out of business with the other company. So then I put that person there for 9 to 12 months. And then next year, I take that place back over once things are back to normal. So I've been able to actually grow and improve the quality of my properties during the pandemic.
This is episode number 60 of the Short-Term Rental Success Stories podcast. Are you an investor that's looking to have your home professionally managed? Go to cohostit.com for more information. Welcome back to Short-Term Rental Success Stories. I'm your host, Julian Sage. This is a show where I talk to hosts about their journeys in starting and growing their short-term rental business. My goal is that you'll be able to walk away with practical information that'll help you become a better host and learn how to scale your business. Like any exceptional host, we all strive for 5-star reviews, so please go on over to iTunes and let us know what you enjoy, as it really helps support the show. If you haven't done so already, go on over to our Facebook group, The Host Nation, to connect with the community. Hey, what is going on, Host Nation? I'm super excited to be back again with you this week. Thank you to everybody that has picked up our new book, Airbnb Secrets Revealed. It's something that we have been giving away for free just because we were planning on printing them out and doing it that way. But because of everything that's been happening, we've decided to make it digital so that, one, we can update the book, but two, so that we can just give it to you for free. So if you go to shorttermsage.com/book, you can pick up your free copy of our newest book, Airbnb Secrets Revealed, where John and I talk about rental arbitrage, co-hosting, our stories, and just all of the exciting potential of short-term rental investing. It's still something that I am super excited and passionate about. Every day I'm excited to wake up to be able to engage and create new content for Host Nation, but also because of the potential of the short-term rental space. There's so much opportunity out there, and I don't want anybody to feel like because of these difficult times that you really just have to fold your hand. There are so many hosts that are hurting right now, and my heart goes out to every single person that hasn't been able to get the bookings that they were expecting during this time. But right now, more than ever, it's most important to keep positive, keep your head up, and remember that this too shall pass. I'm excited to be able to share with you all some of the stuff that we're going to be doing in our business because we are also pivoting as well. Don't worry, guys. It's still all going to be about short-term rentals, but we are trying to make some strategic moves to best position ourselves. And I hope that everybody else is making those types of moves, whether that is upgrading your PMS or even just doing a little thing. One of the things that our guest actually said was, as long as you wake up every morning and ask yourself, what did I do to move the needle forward? Every single day, I look for the needle movers. I try to see what's the biggest thing that I can be doing right now to be able to get me closer to where my goal is. Sometimes that just means, decluttering things or, just trying to do a little bit of something. Other days, they are big moves and I can feel really good. But whether it's a small move or a big move, as long as you're making moves forward, you are going to be okay. Someone that I'm super excited to bring on the show is Travers Xanthos. Travers has a portfolio of 24 properties. 22 of them are rental arbitrage and 2 which he owns, all located in Nashville, Tennessee. Travers had a high-paying sales job for 6 years, and in 8 months after finding about Airbnb and short-term rentals, he was already ready to quit his job from the amount that he was making from his properties. In this episode, Travers shares how he was able to grow his short-term rental business in such a fast time period, how he was able to be completely hands-off while living in Bali, and the secrets he used to getting news reporters to actually promote his properties, and how to find good deals even during uncertain times. This is a really exciting episode, and Travers is really skilled at using media to be able to get his message or to get his properties in front. I actually saw Travers on the most recent CNBC episode where he was actually featured as one of the hosts talking. Some of the tips in this episode are really practical and that you can definitely be using right away. So you want to go ahead and save this episode. Make sure that it is one of your favorites because it is jam-packed. Of course, if you like my show notes for this episode, go to shorttermsage.com/STR60. Or if you like my show notes sent directly to your inbox every week, then go to shorttermsage.com/show notes. With all that being said, on to this week's conversation. Hey, welcome back, Host Nation, to another episode of Short-Term Rental Success Stories. In this episode, we have the special honor of speaking with Travers Xanthos. I get it. Travers Xanthos.
Xanthos. Yep.
Xanthos.
That's it.
When I read the name, I was like, is it like Thanos or Xanthos?
Yeah,
But
no, I get it all. I
Xanthos.
mean, my name's Travers Xanthos, so
Holy, what's
I
your
you know
nationality?
it's Greek.
So that's a traditional like Greek name.
The Demetrius and Xanthus are, yes.
Awesome. Well, now that I just completely butchered your name, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, let the host nation know who you are and what inspired you to get into short-term rentals.
Yeah, so my name's Travers Xanthos. I have about 24 rental arbitrage properties in Nashville. I got started doing this about 3 years ago, was just kind of trying to find something else to get out of the corporate world. Well, really, that wasn't the reason I got started. I was just trying to make some side income, and that's really what it turned into, is my early retirement at 30 years old. So yeah, it's been an awesome ride so far, but that's how I got started.
Awesome. Can you give a little bit more? So like, how did you even know about this? You know, the arbitrage model? Because prior to this, you said that you were in healthcare sales for about 6 years or so.
Yeah, so I was working in healthcare sales. I had a really good sales job. Selling to hospitals. Everything was going great. I had a nice commission check, and I wanted to try to invest that. I really had no idea of how to invest. I wanted to get into real estate. I loved traveling. I've been traveling for a long time, and and Airbnb was something that seemed really cool, something that was exciting to me. And I had a friend of mine who was doing Airbnb. That's all that I knew, was that he had an Airbnb business, and I asked him if I could buy him a beer, to tell me how to do it, because I wanted to go and just buy another house. So I wanted to buy a second house that I could rent as an Airbnb. So I went and met him for a beer on Music Row, at an old country bar. And, right when I walked in, he was like, Travers, I don't buy houses anymore. And he explained to me that all he does is goes and pitches to landlords and apartment complexes to rent their apartments to him. And then he turns them into Airbnbs and rents them like a regular tenant. He told me about all the regulations in Nashville. There's, if you were to ask someone in Nashville if Airbnb is legal, they would probably say that it's not. But there's a lot of loopholes. You have to know how those work. And if you know how those work, then there's a lot of opportunity. So anyway, we sat there and I had my little notepad and I was writing stuff down. He was just talking all night, a couple hours, explaining to me how I needed to talk to the landlord to get them to say yes, how I could manage the places, just basically just an overview of everything. And the next morning I woke up and, was feeling a little rough from the night before, and was like, man, that stuff Ricky was talking about sounds really cool, but, I'm probably not going to do that. And then, I'm in sales. So I started looking at on Craigslist for apartments, and was like, oh, this one looks like it would be good. And, you know, with a sales background, I started to make a cold call list. So I had my Excel spreadsheet. I just started making this list, and then I have a list of like 10 or 15 places. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. Like, why don't I just start calling these places? And I texted Ricky and asked him like, hey, what are the points that I need to say again? And started making the phone calls. And, you know, the first day I probably made 20 calls, and I got a couple maybes, and those maybes got me really excited. And it was all downhill from there. So yeah, I picked up my first two properties a couple weeks later, and you know, yeah. So picked up those first two properties. I kept on, growing. I furnished those, was managing those myself, and I was under contract for two more, and I went down to Cancun for I think it was my 30th birthday, and I was with my girlfriend at the time, and was just kind of like sitting there daydreaming and running numbers through my head, and realized that I was covering my living expenses right then, from the two properties that I had, and I was about to get two more, and I was like, "Holy crap! Like, this is actually real. Like, I just started this, and I can cover my living expenses. What if I continue to grow this?" And when I graduated college, and I traveled around the world for 2 years by myself, and experienced a lot of things, and one of the big things that I saw was that life doesn't have to be part of the corporate America rat race. But as soon as you get into it, it's hard to kind of realize that. Every time I go out of the country, I would kind of fall back into that thought of like, gosh, like this is my 2 week vacation. I'm like stuck the rest of the year. So that was what was going through my head while we were in Cancun for my birthday. And I was like, you know what? Like, Bali's my favorite place in the world. I spent some time there, and I turned to my girlfriend and was like, hey, like, what do you say we quit our jobs and move to Bali? And that's what we decided we were going to do. So I left a very high paying sales job. We gave it kind of 8 months. and just continued to grow throughout that time. And by the time that I put in my 2 weeks notice, I was making as much money with my Airbnb business as I was from my corporate sales job, and was able to go live in Bali as long as I wanted to, and continue growing my business from there. So it's been pretty sweet.
Can you share how much were you making and how many properties was that to be able to replace your corporate sales job?
Uh, well, it was a really high paying sales job. You know, way over six figures. So I think I had like 8 or 10 properties at the time. I was probably doing about 150, 100, maybe 150 to 200,000 a year once they're fully running. So I hadn't made that up to that point, but once they all started going for a full year, that's what they would have done.
So you were bringing in so around 7 to 8 properties is what we typically hear on the show is kind of like that financially free number, or that at least that financial independence. So you were clearing about what, between 1 to 2,000 per property?
Yeah, on average, I do about 1,500 per property.
Okay.
So yeah, it just depends on, first of all, what your living expenses are. So do you live in a huge house that you have to cover and have a car that you have to make payments on and all that? Or, are you living in Bali, and just kind of,
living the baller life?
Exactly. So that's a lot easier to do with 2 or 3 properties, and the rest of it's just saving. So
about how long did it take you to get to that point where you quit your job?
Well, I gave myself 8 months. So I guess it was, about 10 months or so.
10 months from the time that you first found out about
Yeah.
short-term rentals and the master lease rental arbitrage model to the time that you quit your job.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was 2 months since I found out about it that I decided I was going to leave my job.
Wow.
Because that's when I was in Mexico and realized that I was covering my living expenses. This is my escape. So,
and so you actually moved to Bali and you lived there for some time, or was that just more like a vacation?
Yeah, no, the plan was to go to Bali and live there for a year. We were there for about 3 months. It was kind of a weird transition. I mean, going from the corporate world to not having to work anymore. So it was kind of a timeline where I got there. It was great. It was like a vacation for a week. The second week, I felt really guilty because I wasn't working every day. After that, I slowly transitioned into enjoying it. About a month and a half in, I started to get really bored. And then, that's when I decided, like, hey, I got to be moving forward with something. And I don't have an online business. The things that I know require me to be at least in a similar time zone. So, it kind of transitioned to just being based in the US and traveling whenever I want to.
So how did you, that's maybe a big fear for a lot of people is, being able to step away from their business that they've built. A lot of people, they try to leave their corporate world so that they can have more freedom. But then a lot of people, maybe even hosts, end up getting stuck still hosting. How are you able to step away even from your properties?
Yeah, I mean, you just have to structure it in a way to do that. I don't know if you've read 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. That was kind of a big motivator when I decided I was going to leave my job. I had a lot of people like kind of, hating on it, not really hating on it, but just like warning me, like, is this what you want to do? And so I had a lot of anxiety about it. So I think I read that book twice, and that was kind of like gave me some motivation to continue on with the plan. But yeah, you just have to set it up in a way where, honestly, I'm not needed in the business. I pay a property manager to run everything. She's amazing. She does everything how I want her to. She's incentivized to do a great job, to get good reviews, to get high dollar bookings and high occupancy. So it's just a matter of finding the right structure for your business so that you can step out of it. And it's the good thing with me moving to Bali is that, I didn't have a choice. Like I had to leave, and I couldn't really help out. So it's kind of like I had to get someone prepared to take over the management before I left. And when I left, I just needed to make sure that there was someone that could figure out on their own.
I think, Travers, you're one of the first people maybe on the show that I can recall that actually went the property manager route to be able to have them basically manage their business. When did you realize, like, okay, I don't want to be the one that's handling all the, the nuances of hosting, and rather outsource that to a manager?
From the very beginning, that was my plan. So at the very beginning, it was my girlfriend at the time and I were managing the properties. I think that's really important to do so that you understand what goes into it. You understand how to set up the properties, how to set up the structure, and the processes that you're going to be using. Um, Once you've gotten some experience and know how to manage the property, then you can decide on what you want to do next. Do you want to hire a virtual assistant? Do you want to hire someone that's going to be your on-site help and you can still do the guest communication, or you want to hire a full-time property manager? I've obviously evaluated all those different routes. Um, I like the route that I have, the structure that I have, because I don't have to worry. I don't have to deal with anything. I trust the person that's managing my properties very, very much. She's been with me for 3 years since she was my first cleaner that I hired. So she knows these places way better than I do, to be honest. And uh, so if you look at reviews, I mean, having someone local that's there that knows the area, that knows the properties like the back of their hand, it's going to get you really good reviews. If you have a virtual assistant over in India or in the Philippines, they're going to be able to handle basic questions. But just like if you were to pick up the phone and call AT&T's, helpline, and you're really frustrated with something, and you talk to someone that you can't communicate with, um, it's not going to rub you the right way. And if you're leaving a review for someone a review that's very important to them, you want to make sure that they're getting the service that they need. And I feel like a local person is the best route for that.
That is so cool to see, the first person that you hire being your cleaner, and then them eventually turning into your property manager. I was thinking maybe like you hired like another host as a manager, but you took someone that, didn't have any experience in hosting, and then train them up so that they're able to fully operate your business. Now this person, they're a full-time with you, like you pay them a salary?
They're full time. They're a W-2 employee. She did have some experience though. She was managing her own Airbnb when I first hired her on as a cleaner. Um, but yeah, she's grown with the company, and I'm very lucky that I have her. So
And with that, when you're paying someone to manage the properties full time, for you to be able to still walk away from your job and have somebody manage your business, like how much of a cut did having a manager, a full time person, take from like your net profit?
well, there's a lot of different ways to structure the salary or the pay for a property manager, and it's something that I put a lot of thought and planning and preparation into. You can do a straight up percentage based model. I mean, if you were to pay a property management company, it'd probably be 15, 20, 25, 30%, depending on where you are. Um, or you could pay someone. I mean, I talked to some of the big competitors out there, some of the big corporate apartment, multifamily style rental arbitrage, or they call it master lease companies, and kind of talked to them about how they paid their employees by interviewing some of their ex-employees, and found out that they were paid very, very poorly. I mean, a property manager managing an entire city whose responsibility is not just handling all the on-site stuff, doing the quality assurance checks, but also growing the business as well. So finding new properties, responsible for furnishing those properties, all that stuff. I think they were getting paid like $30,000 a year plus $500 per property they found. That's it. So, the way that I looked at it is, if I have someone that I want their goals to align with mine, right? If you pay someone straight percentage based, that can get pretty expensive. I mean, if you have a business like mine that's doing, well over 7 figures a year, you don't want to be paying this person $200,000 a year. So I have a hybrid model, which is a combination of a low base amount plus quarterly incentive pay, which is a percentage of bookings.
Okay. And you took that kind of concept from interviewing what some of the other managers. How did you even find like all these people?
No, I came up with that myself, actually.
You came up
The
you came up
other
with
the
that one?
other companies were paying a salary with
Just strict salary.
a finding bonus of $500. So, um, when I just started thinking about doing that, I was like, oh, well, maybe I could get my costs down a lot, but she's not going to want to work very hard. Especially if I'm planning on growing. So, I mean, say she starts out with managing 10 properties and then I have 20 and she's still getting paid $30,000. That's not fair. So,
And what would you say that your role in the business is now? Once you found that manager and you were able to train them up to be able to handle your portfolio, where did your position kind of fit in?
just kind of, moving forward. So I was finding properties. I mean, it's really gotten to the point where I find the properties and I tell her when we're moving in, and that's it. I set up the bills, that sort of thing. And she's pretty good after that. She does everything herself. So it's really become passive. Now things have changed recently with the pandemic, but up until that point, my time was spent on getting creative, thinking about things that I wanted to do in other businesses, how to grow this business, how to add on to this business, things like that, which is really ideal.
Yeah, you put yourself into the position of being the visionary for your company, and I'm looking at your places, and man, like these are probably some of the most beautiful places that I've seen, like an individual host like this. Some of these properties, they look like it would come out of like a Sonder lyric style place,
Well,
even like the way that the photos are. Did you
yeah.
were you studying what they were doing, trying to like copy the same thing, or?
Oh, for sure. I think I told you, and I'm not going to say what company this was, but um, like I said, I'm a salesperson, and I'm used to kind of like researching people on LinkedIn, that sort of thing. So basically, I was at a point in the road where I didn't really know what to do. I didn't know, like, I wasn't a small, I wasn't 3 or 5 properties anymore. I was growing. I needed to figure out how to get my process in place, my management process. I needed to figure out how I was going to pay people. I needed to figure out a better onboarding strategy. I mean, when I first started, it was like I was running all over town to, you know, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, getting a mattress on one side of town, getting the bed frame on the other side of town, then having to go pick up. It was just chaotic. I'd start paying rent on the first, and the property wouldn't be ready for guests for like 2 or 3 weeks later. And that's with like working really hard in the meantime. So that was the biggest reason I did this. But what I started doing was reaching out to ex-employees from those big companies that you were just mentioning. I sent out probably 30 LinkedIn messages, and I had a couple people reply. One of them was an ex-employee that was a property manager, so that was kind of what I talked about earlier. The other one was a designer who I basically asked if they did freelance work because I loved what they did. When I had coffee with this person, she told me their process for onboarding properties. She also told me where they buy their furniture, and that's really all I needed to know. So basically, I would sit there with a couple of pictures from their properties on the Wayfair and Amazon. Find the same furniture, find the same pillows, find everything the same. I would do the same accent walls, throw wallpaper up, and my process went from taking 3 weeks to, you know, I moved into a property within 36 hours. I'd be welcoming a guest, which, um, you know,
Wow.
just like the increase of money that I was spending on getting brand new furniture was almost justified by getting 3 extra weeks of booking. So, uh, yeah, it's just amazing what you'll learn when you have time and the want.
That is very cool. Very cool. That's very unique. And yeah, I love the style, and I can probably even see maybe through some of the properties that you had, like when you really started upping your style and upping your game
Yeah,
on there. there's
for
there's a big
sure.
difference. Like looking at one to the other, it's like wow, something definitely changed. So it must have been way.
Yeah, yeah. There's a difference in style. There's also a difference in, some of the places are older buildings. Some of them are new multifamily complexes. So, I mean,
So one thing that I wanted to hit on, you said you nearly fully automated it. So did you have your property manager going in and like designing the units for you once you already kind of had a layout or an idea?
basically, the way that it was going for a while was that I would order all the furniture. I would sit down and use the same process that I learned from this designer, where I would sit there and create a design map like on PowerPoint. So I'd be like, okay, here's the living room. I would take a picture from Amazon or wherever I got the couch, put that on there. So then I could coordinate all the colors and have the color of the accent wall and all that sort of stuff. Then I would go through and order everything at once, and have it all shipped to somewhere where I could store it. So I would always give myself 2 weeks before move-in date, and then I would have everything shipped within those 2 weeks. And then the day that we'd move in, I'd have the painters come. We'd follow up right afterwards with some hired, hands to help us put furniture together. And yeah, and so that's kind of what the process is. Um, she's taken over. I told you a little bit before we started about how I have four storage units full of furniture now, so I don't really have to worry about that. So now she just knows what we need in the places, and she just grabs it from there, and has a couple of helpers that help her, and I'll go help her sometimes too.
What a good guy. And going back to one of the things that you mentioned that I thought was really unique was that you're playing within the rules in Nashville. And when like even when I look at Nashville, I'm like there's a lot of regulations. There's it's very strict. But you said that you were able to find out how to play within those rules. Did you know that going in, like what to look for, or is it just not blatant to the public? Like what type of properties you should be aiming for?
Yeah, I mean, that's just something I figured out over time. I know that you can go in any city and look up the short-term rental regulations. And if you read them and, go through them and look at all the detail, you're going to realize what the loopholes are. Once you figure that out, then you can find properties that match what are allowed. So, when I first started in Nashville, I was getting a lot of no's, a lot of no's. But now when I call properties, first of all, I know the right type of properties to call. I know who to call. I know the biggest thing is the pitch. So now I have a pitch that, I'd say 85% of the phone calls I make now are yeses.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And kind of going from there, you've gotten a lot of experience, and you're naming some of the companies that you worked with, or that you were talking to. There's a lot of big players in the Nashville space. One that you mentioned was like Domio. You said that there was like also Stay Alfred, Sonder, all these really big companies. And you being, an arbitrage, a master, arbitrage host, using the master lease model, how has your business been impacted? I know a lot of people that are probably listening to this are probably like, oh, arbitrage is dead. It's not going to work. What are your thoughts, being heavily invested in this space?
Yeah, I mean, since the very beginning, I've always kind of been hesitant. In my head, I've always said this rental arbitrage thing is going to last a couple of years, so I need to figure out something else to do in the meantime. But right now, I don't see any reasons why it would go away. I think that right now we're playing in the difference of short-term rental prices and long-term rental prices. I think eventually those are going to come closer and closer together. But who knows how long that's going to be, especially with what's going on right now with the pandemic. So uh, multiple ways to look at this. I mean, rental arbitrage compared to, say, owning a short-term rental property. Look at things like that's going on right now with the pandemic. I have 24 properties. I only own two of them. If I'd owned 24 of them, I would be in a lot of trouble right now. But what I've been able to do is, I've been able to use this time to offload some of my low performing properties and take on more new properties from other competitors that are high performing. If I owned all these properties, that would be not possible for me to do unless I was able to sell them within a matter of days, which isn't going to happen. So it's a lot safer of a bet to do rental arbitrage. Landlords and leases are not as powerful as mortgages and banks. So the one downside is you aren't getting equity, but the upside is that for the same price of getting one house that you buy, you can probably get about 5 properties with rental arbitrage. And then once you take that over time, 5 properties, then you get 5 more. I mean, it's exponentially so much better as a cash flow business. In terms of competitors with Sonder and Lyric and Stay Alfred and all those guys, that's something that's worried me. I've heard through the grapevine. I was always waiting for Sonder to get to Nashville, and they finally did. I heard that they had 2,000 or 3,000 properties in the pipeline in Nashville, which, if 2,000 or 3,000 one bedroom apartments come in to Nashville, that's going to completely, turn this whole Airbnb model on its head. But hopefully some of this shakeup is going to prevent that. But the good thing though is a lot of those properties are really high dollar. Stay Alfred was in a building called the 505 that was right on Broadway in downtown. I mean, they're paying like $3,000, like $2,500 a month for a one bedroom, whereas I'm half a mile away, paying $1,000, $1,200 for rent a month. So my price point is totally different. My customers, my clients are different because, you know, not everyone can spend $800 on a one bedroom for a weekend night in the spring, so if they're around the $350 mark, then come stay at one of my places. So there's that difference. If you look at reviews, and this is one of the reasons I was talking earlier about not going with kind of an outsourced call center or, virtual assistant is, if you look at a lot of their reviews, like no one, no one wants to stay with this huge company headquartered in San Francisco when they're coming to Nashville. They want to stay with someone that's from Nashville that has local tips for them, that knows the neighborhoods. Their apartments feel like they're living as a local in the neighborhoods. So I think that does help as well. And you can see it in the reviews.
Yeah, I'm looking at your reviews, and it's all 5 stars, 150. Really, really, really good. And like you said, what I really like what you said was that you're differentiating yourself from these companies that are maybe overpriced and not personal. You're able to offer a competitive price, and probably even the deals that you're picking up. Like, have you run the numbers on how much maybe they're bringing in for their properties versus what you're able to bring in on yours?
Yeah. So when you're looking at the numbers, you'd want to think that their overhead is lower than someone like me, because they're doing it at such a large scale. But then also, if you look at someone like Sonder, half of their employees are engineers. So that's got to be a pretty high cost to keep all those employees, which I know they let most of those go. But during normal times, I think our margins are probably around the same, which, uh, and really it's about, if you look at what's going on right now with COVID-19, the whole pandemic thing, um, if I had two properties, uh, I would be very comfortable handling this whole ordeal. With 24 properties, it's a little bit harder. I really had to keep myself positive and really work hard and create, get creative, creating new ways to handle things and really adapt. But my business is small enough for me to, it's nimble enough for me to make these changes to get through this. If you look at someone with 2,000 or 3,000 properties across the whole world, it's a little bit harder for them to do a lot of the same things that I've been able to do, and other hosts that are my size and smaller have been able to do. So all they're really doing right now is lowering the prices on Airbnb and on their direct booking platforms, which is going to get you part of the way there, but it's not going to save your business. We'll see, but I think a lot of them are going to have a lot of trouble.
I've heard from one or two people now that the arbitrage model at scale is not really something that's maybe sustainable. Do you agree with that? Do you think that because of you being able to find these properties at a lower price point, you don't have high overhead, that the arbitrage master lease is only really good for maybe up to a certain amount?
So these guys have venture capitalist backing. I mean, all that they know, what they're supposed to be doing is growing, growing, growing. Whereas my model is different. Like, all I want is financial freedom and, semi or passive income. So I'm good with 10 properties. If I want to stay at 10 properties for 5 years, there's no boss that's telling me that we need to, help our investors, which that's what they have. So, my biggest fear through this whole business has been that I've continued to grow and dump my money back into growing, growing, growing. And something like this happens, and I never end up making any money, and I lose everything. So I'm very lucky to have a mentor named Brian Clayton, who last summer, he told me, Travers, you need to slow down. You need to start building your cash reserves, which I did. It was a very boring 6 to 8 months because I love growing the business. That's what I enjoy doing, and I wasn't able to do that. but thankfully I did that, and now I have the cash. I haven't thankfully had to use any of the cash, but I'm able, if I had 10 more properties right now, it would have been a lot harder, especially if I had just paid for them and onboarded them. Where you look at these big dog companies who have probably doubled in size last year and planned on tripling in size this year. And now they just got a curveball thrown at them. And, these companies aren't made to, these companies are made to grow. They aren't made to figure out how to maintain. So I will be very surprised if, say 3 of the big 5 make it through this.
Yeah, man, you just dropped so much golden information right there. And I think, like what you said, and you're talking about that exponential growth, like this model, it's so cash heavy. You could easily scale this business if you have the right systems in place and you know how to be able to, take on more units. And that's what you were doing. And you were on the exponential growth, but, like what your mentor said, you have to, be mindful, that, something could happen. So you saving your money help prepare you for this type of event where companies like that, where we've seen them growing and we're all just kind of like oogling and ogling, like, man, I want to get to that. Like, I want to have that type of growth. But like you said, they got caught with their pants down because they weren't reserving their cash, and maybe they weren't as concerned about, the margins that you are, that you've been able to look at. So I think that there's a lot of space for these smaller, arbitrage hosts. And I think you found that perfect sweet spot. And with that though, a lot of hosts are feeling the burden of, lack of bookings. Have you found that? What are the things that you're doing in your business to be able to generate occupancy? Because you said that you're at about an 85% occupancy right now, which is, really, really strong.
Yeah. So I'll just kind of tell you how this all started for me. I'd say like maybe March 12th. I kind of thought this whole pandemic was, just like most people thought, it wasn't really going to impact us that much. Someone asked me, one of my students asked me if I thought it was going to hurt us and all that, and regrettably my answer was that this is international; it won't affect us domestically. About March 12th, I had a conversation with an old coworker of mine, and he kind of like warned me about, he brought more to light that I didn't know before, and I started to panic. I was like, holy crap, this isn't on the news yet. Everyone's booking like crazy on Airbnb right now. But like, if this is real, what this guy is saying, quarantining, like there's no way that's going to happen. But if this is true, like I'm going to be in a lot of trouble. So what my first strategy is, right when I thought of that, I kind of freaked out, and I decided I was going to lower all of my rates for the next 3 months. So through June, I guess through June, I lowered all my rates to basically my rock bottom rates. Cause 3 months out, 4 months out, I have them at my highest point. As it gets closer, I lower them. So I basically put them at the same rate that if it was maybe 3 weeks away. And it was crazy. I mean, people were booking like nothing was going on. I probably had $80,000 worth of bookings in the next 4 days. Then on day 4, which was March 15th, I guess I flew down to Costa Rica. I was supposed to go down there to go paragliding for a couple days, and I was going down to Buenos Aires for just kind of live there for a month, and work remote or do whatever. And so this stuff kind of came to a head right when I landed in Costa Rica for my flight. Because I was like, okay, I'm going to be in good shape because I have all these bookings for the next couple of months. Like, no matter what happens, like my cancellation policy, like I'll be able to cover my rent and my expenses and my payroll. And right when I landed in Costa Rica, I looked at my phone and realized that was when the Airbnb started giving full refunds to all their guests, and my heart dropped. And I had sat there for about an hour and was like, I got to go back like right now. I got to go back. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I have to do something. And I ended up staying for the rest of the trip in Costa Rica. But when I got back, I really hit it hard, and just I came up with a strategy and a plan, and that plan has changed a lot since then. But luckily, I just and I listened to one of your recent podcasts, and I liked how you were talking. I mean, it was nice how you were telling the truth, and you're saying that you kind of were down and depressed for a while, and I was the same way. Like I didn't want to do anything, and then my mentor and just myself, I just kind of had to wake myself up and was like, dude, this is your time to step up and prove that you deserve to have this business. And, you've worked so hard for it. It's your chance to try to save it. So I put together a plan, and luckily the plan has worked. I went from 92% occupancy for the month of, I think either April or March. Yeah, it must have been April. Yeah. So I was around 92% occupancy. That dropped down to about 8% occupancy at one point. But through all the things that I've done, I've gotten it up to 85%, which I'm proud of.
Awesome. I want to talk about some of the things that you're doing, but one of the really cool things, you said you made a website called medreliefhousing.com, and during this time you got featured in up to like 20 news channels or news articles, and you were featured in the Nashville Times, was it? Or the Tennessee Times?
And the Tennessean, which is like the big news paper, I guess, for the state of Tennessee. Also on CNBC, and a couple other nationwide programs. But yeah, so it was on March 23rd. I probably had the idea on the 22nd. But on March 23rd, I was like, just kind of thinking about what was going to happen, and was like, there's going to be a lot of medical people that are coming to Nashville and bigger cities, especially Nashville. Nashville has like a lot of huge, healthcare companies and hospitals and medical centers and stuff. So I was just kind of thinking that if this stuff gets really bad, there's gonna be a lot of traveling nurses coming to town. I also afterwards started thinking about doctors and nurses that wanted to isolate themselves from their families to keep them safe and things like that. So no one was really doing this yet. So I called one of my friend's fiancés and was like, running this name by her, medreliefhousing.com. And I was like, med relief, is that like a term? Like, it sounds good, but is that like an actual term?
Is that what they use? Yeah.
So I got her go ahead on the URL and the name of it, and just made a website quickly on Squarespace. It took like an hour or two, and just use a bunch of stock photos. And my first time creating a website, and once I got that up and running, I kind of framed it as, it's discounted, fully furnished accommodation for medical providers and first responders. And, there was over 100 hosts, Airbnb hosts, have come together to do our part in fighting this pandemic. The healthcare, providers are on the front lines. They're the real heroes of this country. And we don't have the same skills that they do. But what we do have is fully furnished accommodations at lowered prices, basically just break even prices, just enough to keep the lights on. So that's kind of what the theme was with it. And yeah, so I reached out to a bunch of reporters, and, I probably did 15 to 20 news reports throughout Tennessee and the rest of the country, which is pretty cool.
And how many bookings did you start getting coming through your site?
Well, I got an overwhelming amount of hosts reaching out, but I had some nurses reaching out. It really wasn't as great as you'd think, but it's been kind of cool. I've been able to help out some nurses, probably 20 or 30 nurses. And also, if I didn't have a property for these people, I was connecting them with other hosts. So I was able to help out some other hosts that were in desperate situations too. So it was kind of cool to be able to give back and do something for everyone as well. So
you were the Airbnb frontline before they were even a thing.
Yeah. So that was the thing, is I made this website. I already had like a couple interviews set up, and then like my property manager sends me a screenshot of Airbnb's thing, and I was like, oh my God, like I can't believe they are doing the exact same thing as me. But I just decided to phrase it as more of like local Airbnb hosts instead of just Airbnb as a company. And I think that local news stations are looking for a feel-good story right now, and they would rather focus on something local. So
that is so cool, Travers. That is really awesome. How did you? Because a lot of hosts, and that's one of the things that I've been getting a lot more on the show, and we have more upcoming interviews, is with corporate housing companies and how they're able to find these types of corporate clients. How did you know who to reach out to or what to say to them to be able to pitch your idea? So like for all the hosts that do maybe want to create something locally, maybe there isn't nothing local for them, like for schools or whoever it is, oil workers, construction, whatever, how can they reach out and be able to pitch their properties to the right people?
So before I tell you how to do this, I have to give credit. So Brian, my mentor, his business partner Gene, they have a company called My Green Pal. It's your Uber. It's like Uber for lawn service. So that's their little commercial right there because they're the guys who've been helping me with all this. Gene's sole job for this company, this startup, it's a pretty big company now, but his whole job is PR. So if they expand to a new city, all he goes out there and tries to get as many interviews and spread the word as possible so that the word spreads and a lot of people sign up, whether it's like lawn maintenance people that get on the app or the end users. So I knew that's what he did. And so I reached out to him and he told me how to do it. So basically he gave me a list of like probably 100 reporters in Nashville and other cities. Basically, how you put that list together is let's say it's like Fox 7 News or something. Just go on Google, search Fox 7 News reporters, and it'll take you to their page. You can click on each reporter. They'll have their name and their email address and their Twitter account or whatever. Just, start an Excel spreadsheet with their first name, their email address, and then you can do a mail merge. You write one letter that plugs in their name, plugs in maybe their station, and send that first email, and then follow up a couple days later, and then follow up a couple days later, and see how many you get.
And how many did you get from your list? Like how big was your list, and how many responses did you get from that resulted in these articles?
Well, the first email that I sent out, and so this is what Brian and Gene were telling me, is like, Travers, this is the easiest publicity you're ever going to get, like, because it's relevant. It's like feel good story, like I was saying. So I think I sent the first email out to maybe like 60 people, and like within 5 minutes, I got 3 responses, which is crazy. They were like, "Yeah, that never happens." So yeah, I'll definitely be using this same thing in the future for whatever other idea I come up with. So
Yeah, that's so brilliant. I love that. And you're taking that sales knowledge, that skill, and then applying it to the short term rental space with the PR. And you got to just the right timing. I don't know how they probably still would have supported you regardless, but like with the Airbnb timing and everything like that.
well, yeah, I mean that's what I was worried about. But then when I changed it, I changed the email to local Airbnb host, and I think that's what did it.
Awesome. And
I think if you were to send that out right now, you might not have as much luck, but you might. So give it a shot.
worth a try. Awesome. That is a really golden nugget right there. And what were some of the other things that you were doing? That wasn't the only plan or idea that you had during this time?
Yeah, I mean, I've had the most luck. I mean, I tried to use Zillow. I didn't really have much luck with that, and now they're charging for it, and I don't want to pay $240 a week when I'm trying to figure out how to pay my rent. Yeah, a lot of stuff. I mean, I'm like, I don't know. Literally thought I was going to go bankrupt. Like I was like, look, I'm going to lose my business and go bankrupt trying to keep it alive. Or should I just like lose my business and take my money now? Those are the two options that I thought that I had. And luckily I was able to come up with something in between and utilize these things I'm going to tell you right now, but also work with my landlords to get flexible. I've subleased a couple of my properties to, other people that want to get into rental arbitrage.
What?
Yeah. And yeah, just all this stuff coming together. I also got the PPP loan because I have a W-2 employee, which that's going to help me keep her getting paid and stuff. But yeah, so the things I've had the most luck with were probably the number one thing was probably Facebook Marketplace. Yeah. I just put grab my photos from Airbnb. I mean, I have like 20 something listings on Facebook Marketplace. It's been a full-time job. And I'm not used to doing this kind of work. So it hasn't been too much fun, but it's definitely been worth it. So just creating listings on Facebook Marketplace, saying that they're available for month to month or short term or long term. They can be furnished or unfurnished. Yeah, so I've had good luck with that. I probably have gotten about I'd say 15 properties or more on either month to month, week to week, or I have even some 12-month leases. Just to buy myself some time, and I won't be making money from them. Yeah, I have them all for basically break-even prices. So, say my rent at the place is $1,200, I'll list it on there for $1,195, and then just make them pay like $130 set fee for utilities and internet. So yeah, it's a grind, but it can really help you. So
That's a really unique tip. I don't think I've heard anybody else share that. So I think a lot of hosts that are listening to this episode definitely do that. I think I'm gonna go into the Facebook Marketplace and put my places too. Are there any other things that you were doing to be able to try to keep your business afloat?
yeah, let's see. So I mean, obviously, what most people are doing is still trying to get Airbnb bookings. So what I'm doing is in each building, I'm leaving one or two properties open on Airbnb, uh, so that so I don't have to go and cancel on these guests. So all the people that I've gotten month-to-month tenants in, basically what I'm doing is if anyone keeps their reservation in the next upcoming months, I have a place to put them into. And then with those properties, I've done a lot of kind of creative things. You know, one of the big problems is the existing bookings that you're pretty sure are going to cancel. But if you cancel them, then you don't get your 12.5% from Airbnb. So one of the things that I did is I have like 4 or 5 basically identical apartments in this one complex. I created one brand new listing with kind of the standard photos that are pretty much the same in all of them. I opened up the calendar for 3 months with a flexible cancellation policy and a 2-week minimum. So now it's a wide open calendar, and I'm getting like 3-4 week bookings for this property. And then I just take that, clear out the calendar on another one and move them over to that. And then the calendar is wide open on that new listing again. So it's kind of like you're able to take the chance, with potentially getting these people to come in, or at least getting the 12.5% from Airbnb, while opening up a wide open calendar for you to, get some bookings in, long-term bookings.
But this strategy really only applies if you have multiple units in the same building that are pretty similar.
I mean, that's ideal. It depends on what you want to do. If you have like, a couple of the same size places, you can do that. I mean, we've been shifting people around a lot, and guests haven't seemed to have a problem with it. As long as you phrase it the right way, and you're thankful and communicate well with them, you'll be good. So that's one way. So another thing that we've been doing is making sure, I think every Sunday or so, we call all of our current guests, because we have, the guests that are staying are different than normal, right? They're not bachelorette parties. They're people that are just kind of like stuck in Nashville, or they're nurses or construction workers or whatever. But we call all of them and ask them if they want to extend. And like literally like 80% of the time they do. So that's really helped us out a lot. Another thing that I could suggest is calling your local trade unions. I have 5 properties that have construction workers that pay me week to week, and that was great. So I mean, construction in Tennessee is still going on; it's not slowing down. And a lot of times, these construction workers have stipends where they get $100 a day to spend on accommodation. And if they're able to find something that's $50 and then they can share it with someone else, then they're going to take that. So reach out to them. I have one guy that I got in originally from Facebook Marketplace, and I told him that for every apartment he helps me get booked, I'll knock $30 off per week from his rent cost. So he's got me 4 other apartments filled.
I love this, Travers. Travers, you're taking really like these sales techniques, probably something that you've like probably would have learned at your previous job, and then applying it to the short-term rental space. Did you think that you were really gonna make it? Can you honestly say that you thought that you were gonna make it out of this, and now to where you are right now?
I mean, I'm usually a really positive person. I'm big on mindset and all that sort of stuff, but no, I didn't. I was in Costa Rica with my paragliding buddies, and I was like, guys, like the life I've been living is over. Like I'm gonna have to go, close out my business and get a job again, and or figure something out, because I didn't think I was gonna make it. I thought that like I said before, I thought my choices were to either close down my business, and impact my credit score by getting out of all these leases, and keeping the money that I have, or taking the money and lasting an extra 3 months and hoping that it's good by then. So yeah, I didn't think I was going to make it, but after a few days of slapping myself into shape, I realized like, look, you can't have this attitude, and it's all about just trying to get creative and adapt. And I look at this whole thing as it's a big shakeup, not just in the short term rental industry and just for entrepreneurs, small business owners, all sorts of industries. It's a shakeup where some people are going to rise to the top and some people are going to go to the bottom. And it's really just about having the mindset and wanting to pursue and work hard and try new things. The people that are stuck in the old ways are not going to make it through this. So.
And do you think that with what you've set up right now, it's going to be able to last indefinitely into the future? And do you think that you'll be maintaining some of the things that you did now, such as basically making like a little corporate housing company, but moving into the future with your arbitrage units?
I don't know how long it's going to last. I think a couple more, a couple years, 5-10 years, who knows? But the thing that I've learned now is that, as an entrepreneur, we're able to adapt and change and go with the flow. Like when things change, we change, and and it's still going to work out. So that's one great thing I've learned through all this. Yeah, I hope. Like I'm still caught trying to decide what I want to do. Do I want to get, sometimes I'm like, man, it'd be nice if I just had all my places with 9-month subleases and I don't make any money for the next 9 months. But when they all move out at springtime and I know that the market's going to be back to at least semi-normal and back to money again, or do I want to take a chance and, keep having to grind and, respond to all these freaking Facebook marketplace messages that are driving me crazy. But, yeah, so I'm just still taking it day by day, really.
That was one of the things that you said that was pretty unique. You're actually subleasing your units to people that want to get into the arbitrage space themselves.
Yeah, I did that once. So
just a one-time thing. So it's not a lot of properties.
That was a one-time thing.
And how was that experience?
Yeah. Yeah, it's been fine. I don't want to talk about that part.
Okay.
We'll leave it up, but whatever.
But for the hosts that are listening, you don't recommend that they allow units, because that was an option. Like even my partner John, like some people were reaching out to him and saying like, hey, would you allow me to be able to reuse your place? You don't recommend that hosts start doing that?
No, I think that's totally a possibility. I mean, I have one person that's gotten mine for 4 months. He started subleasing these places before everything kind of hit the fan. So that's a little bit different. I have another, good friend of mine that's an entrepreneur as well, that's trying to make a little bit of a change in his business model. He's wanted to create a software for the industry, but he wants to get more experience on what it's like to actually manage properties. So we're talking about doing a deal where I would basically sublease 4 units to him for 2 years. They would come fully furnished, completely turnkey. All the hard work would be done by me, and I would basically just hand over the playbook and how to do it. Then he could get that experience. He could make some profit next year and the following year, and then in 2 years they would come back to me. So if you have someone you trust, I mean, you just got to be careful about it. It needs to stay in your, in your name, but you have to trust them enough not to just, stop paying rent or things like that. So it's definitely case by case basis.
Case by case. And one more thing that I wanted to hit on was that you said you were actually picking up some apartments or some units from some of these bigger players that were letting them go. Can you kind of explain how that came about, how you even found out about that, and your mindset and strategy with that play?
Yeah. So I mean, like I said before, I went from a place where I thought that I was done for and I was gonna have to find another business or a job, to been able to really just take advantage of this as an opportunity. So yeah, what I've been able to do during this time is I've been able to offload my least profitable properties. So my 5 least profitable properties, I'm out of the lease. Both of those worked out very smoothly. All my landlords have been very great, honestly. These ones worked out very smoothly. One of them, I found a long-term tenant to take my place. The other one, I had 3 units with this guy, and he's a really nice guy. He's a doctor, and his wife was looking for something to do. And so when I told him that I was thinking about leaving the properties, we made a deal where basically no more money was going to exchange hands. I haven't paid March or April rent to him yet, and he had my deposit for next month. And basically he was going to buy all the furniture off of me. I'm going to give him my training and teach his wife how to manage the properties. So she's going to start Airbnb them herself, and I'll get them set up with the permits and all that stuff. So it was really a win-win, and I think you know it was good for me because I was able to get out of properties, and it's going to be good for them because their mortgage is lower than what I was paying in rent, and they're going to be making money off of them, or more money than they were pretty soon.
That's awesome. So you basically made like a little turnkey property for them. They get everything, the training, all that, and you get to walk away scot free without it impacting you.
Yeah, I mean, it's I was so worried about because I was going to be asking my landlords for some sort of flexibility, and when it coming up to April 1st, and I sat there and wrote a really well written, very thought out email, all sorts of stuff in there, and I sent it out to all my landlords, and all of them but one. I think there was probably 8 emails I sent out. 7 of them responded with very understanding emails, like this is so, because I basically told them like, hey, this is the initiative that I started. That here's the news articles, all this sort of stuff. And some people were like, this is so great. That's so amazing you're able to do this. Some people were like, I completely understand. Like, let's touch base in a couple of weeks about rent. And like, that's basically how all of them went. So I went from being really nervous, like, wow, these people are great. So humanity is still overall good, I think.
And what was this about? Picking up, you said bought around 20 apartments worth, 20 apartments from another company that was going under. What was that whole situation about?
Yeah, so I guess I'll just tell the story from that, and this goes back to why I love my property manager so much. I had a meeting at a bank. We had a couple. I think we had 4 properties that we were moving into in 2 weeks. So we were looking for furniture. I had a meeting with a lender because I'm building some short-term rental houses in Nashville, and I told my property manager, hey, I'm going to be in this meeting from 12 till 1 or something like that. And so I was in this meeting. When I got out, she called me, and while I was in this 1 hour meeting, this is what she did. She found an ad on Craigslist that was selling furniture. She reached out to the person, found out it was one of our competitors that was being bought out slash going out of business. Some of their properties got bought out by a larger company that I'll get back to later. And then the rest of them, they were just closing down shop because they couldn't transfer the leases over to the bigger company's name. So there was about 20.
What's the time frame around this? When was this?
This was like maybe December of last year.
Okay. So not current, not current.
So yeah. So she found this person on Facebook Marketplace, found out that they had 20 properties that they had to get rid of all the furniture and by midnight that night. And she already pre-negotiated the deal for me. So, and she already got 2 U-Hauls and rounded up about 12 helpers to come help move stuff before midnight.
What?
And so she tells me all this stuff, and she's like, I'm just waiting for the go ahead from you. And I was like, hell yeah, let's do it. So, the rest of the day, we started just moving stuff until like 2 or 3 in the morning. But yeah, so like I was saying earlier, at this point, I was probably spending about $4,500 to furnish and onboard a 1-bedroom apartment. And I bought 20 apartments worth of furniture for $10,000.
Are you allowed to disclose like where and how that whole situation was? Like what type of properties were these? Was it just like any rent?
Yeah, there were a bunch of apartments and multifamily complexes. So, not only did I take the property, did I take the furniture, everything from the TVs to the sheets and towels to the coated door locks. But yeah, I also made a really hard push to take over the properties, and unfortunately I didn't get any of them, but I was pretty close.
That is so cool. So you picked up those 20. So is that something that you'll be looking for in the future? Like how do you even find like something as golden opportunity as that?
Well, I don't need any more furniture for a while, so I'm not really looking for that. I might even be getting rid of some of it, but yeah, because I have like 4 storage units full of it. But I do have some other opportunities that I was telling you about before we started. It was kind of crazy how I thought I was going to go out of business, and then all of a sudden I was able to offload my lowest performing properties, and I'm going to be able to pick up more properties and complexes that I know are highly profitable. Some of the most profitable properties that I have, I'm probably going to be able to get 4 to 10 more units from, because, like I said before, a lot of the big companies are going out of business. One of them for sure is going out of business. I'm not going to mention who it is, but um, I have a close relationship with the property manager that runs the complex, and basically we're going to set up a deal where I've had a lot of success in that same building for breaking even for 12-month rentals or month-to-month rentals. I already have like a ton of people on Facebook Marketplace that are waiting for me to get back to them, but I don't have anywhere to put them at this point. So what I'm doing is I'm taking these people that are looking for a 12-month place that wanted to maybe be fully furnished, maybe not. Um, I'm getting them to sign a sublease with me, and then I turn around to the apartment complex, sign a lease for that property because they recently went out of business with the other company. So then I put that person there for 9 to 12 months, and then next year I take that place back over once things are back to normal. So I've been able to actually grow and improve the quality of my properties during the pandemic.
You are a wild entrepreneur, Travers. That is so freaking cool. That you're able to, and so for the hosts that are listening and kind of thinking like, how can you make, how can you turn lemons and turn them into lemonade? Look at what everybody else in the space is doing. Those people that, or those properties that you thought maybe I couldn't get into because there's other competitors. There's like Y Hotels, Domios, Saunders, all these places where they're in these like awesome properties. And you might be able to actually have an opportunity where the numbers though, because you said that a lot of these properties that they are in, they're paying over market rent. Was this a property that they just got a really good deal and you were able to just move on that one?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the complexes or multifamily places that they're in don't make them pay extra. So, I mean, a lot of the places in Nashville and other cities, it's an apartment complex that'll have maybe like 8 units with one company, 4 units with my company, and like 8 units with another company or something like that. So when it's staged like that, there's not really, usually it's pay regular rent. If it's one of the Sonder, for example, coming into like an apartment complex that's being built and they want to take over like 50 units, the whole like bottom 4 floors or something, then they're going to set up a deal with them that's a little bit different. It'll probably be could be 5 or 10 years long with some sort of guaranteed payout to the owners of the building, which is why they're in a little bit more trouble as well. So, but yeah, these smaller apartment complexes where they only have a handful of places, this company, these properties that I'm talking about was the bigger company that bought out the company that I got all that furniture from.
Got it.
So they've only been in there for a few months.
And this corporate housing company, more the traditional corporate housing company, they what you say that they weren't able to pay for the property and they were just letting them go, or how do you even acquire?
Yeah, corporate housing. I mean, I would call it master lease company. I mean, it's one of the big companies that does exactly what we do, just on a larger scale. Like I was saying before, man, they've just completely over leveraged. They've just grow, and then this happened, and they're in trouble. So it's either they cut their losses and just they're in so deep that they're not gonna be able to work through it. So they just said we're going bankrupt.
Awesome. Well, and not awesome for them, but that's I think it's really cool, Travis, to get you on here. I think it's such a unique episode. I highly recommend. And we didn't even get to some of the traditional questions that I ask on the show just because your story's been so interesting. So definitely we got to get you back on here in the future to be able to talk about some of the ways that you're pivoting your business or that you're growing. And I'm sure things are going to change after this, maybe where you end up or what you're going to be doing. But I think what you're doing right now is just so cool, really inspiring for the Host Nation community. And so thank you so much for coming on here. What's the best way for someone to be able to reach out to you if they have any other questions or they want to be able to find out more about you?
Yeah, they can go to my Instagram. It's at Travers Xanthos. Reach out to me there or follow me on there.
I'll make sure to include a link because it might be a little bit difficult for them to be able to spell this out over the podcast.
Yeah, it's kind of difficult.
But yeah, I'll include all the links down below. Your website, Stay Como, really cool. I love the love your site, your properties, and I think it's really cool what you're doing. Do you have anything else that you wanted to share? Any last words before we sign off?
Yeah, I'd say for the other hosts out there, like just stay positive and you're going to get through this. Get creative and adapt, and it's a lot of fun. So as long as you wake up every morning and say, what can I do to move this forward? You're going to have some forward progress. And that's what's going to get you through this. So stay positive and keep working.
Well, I'm glad we get to see you on the other side, Travers.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot for having me on here. See you.
Until next time, Host Nation, keep on hosting. Hope you hosts benefited from the show. If you found value, please go on over to iTunes, leave us a review, and let us know what you enjoy about the show. If you'd like to talk to hosts that have been featured in these episodes as well as the community, go on over to our Facebook group, The Host Nation.